Welcome to hour 36 of the Barkley Marathon's updates. Well, it looks like they might get the fun run done, but probably will not be able to go on to another lap. We're waiting for them. I think the 36-hour cutoff is in about 45 minutes, so it's like 2:12 over there in Tennessee. It's 11:12 here in California. So I've been doing updates throughout. I've done this is like the fourth one, I think. And so I've just been checking out Twitter and kind of going over some of the better things. And of course, first Barkley was held in 1986 with 3 loops for about 55 miles, 25,000 feet of climbing with a 24-hour cutoff. 13 unlucky runners started. They paid a fee of 35 cents. And then of course, later on, a couple years later, it was changed to 5 loops. And now 3 loops is the fun run. Jared Campbell said in 2019, Jared Campbell finished loop under 11 hours with a major ankle tear. They have about 10 hours for this one. I believe they can do it. It won't be easy, but I hope they can get the support from the weather, is what one person wrote. And you can see all these tweets and more on my Twitter. I put it on Twitter/Andy Noise. It'll be in the show notes. John Kelly had some really good observations, of course, and he says, so painfully close, but this is an incredible trio who have great experience on their belts. Sort of density of top veteran talent on the women's side is something that has been needed at Barkley's. I look forward to seeing where it leads. Congrats to all of them. And yes, it was a really good performance, and hopefully they'll keep on going. Someone posted this, and it's definitely true. It's especially cute when big names start Barkley's and everyone just expects them to finish the first time, like Wardian, like Michael Wardian. Now, of course, I never really thought Michael Wardian would. He's too much of a road guy, and it's interesting in this race, it's not about who really fast, top, talented 100-mile racers, because, those guys are done in 12 to 15 hours, depending on it. Myself, I've done 19 races over 100 miles or longer, and even my fastest 100-miler is, a little under 27 hours. So I always see a second day. And so for a lot of people, I crew and pace quite a bit, and I've been to a lot of 24-hour races, and you'll see that, the top guys, top guys and women, they get to 100 miles, 15, 16 hours or faster. And then, to look down the barrel of another 8-hour workday to continue on. And so many of them do really fall apart and or just drop out. And I always say, hey, if you're in a 24-hour race, it's the name of it is 24-hour race, meaning you're supposed to be out there for the whole 24 hours racing. And that's kind of like I've said before with Barkley Marathons. It's 100 miles, supposedly. I think it's obviously longer, but it's a 60-hour race, and you need to be prepared to be out there for 60 hours. It's not like you're going to go out there and crush a 40-hour. I've crewed and paced Tahoe 200 a couple times, and it has a 100-hour cutoff. When they were first running, it was taking people, 60, 70 hours, and now, they're doing it in 50 hours. So they've improved. But Barkley's that's not gonna happen. Plus, I think they're, change up the course to make it a little harder. So it says here, left camp with what should be enough time for third loop, but pretty much no chance for 10 hours. They need to come in sub 36 loop 3 cutoff required to start the 4th loop. So like I said, the cutoff now is in 45 minutes. They should have 14 hours to come in with the fun run with light most there. 3rd loop. So yeah, they look like they might be able to get the fun run, but we shall see. It says, yeah, we've been spoiled with finishers in the 2010s, with 2020 being canceled. And this will most likely only be the 3rd consecutive race without a loop 5 finish. 2018 and 2020 had thunderstorms. I think 2019 had freezing rain and snow. Next year, like this year and every year, there will be Barkley weather. It never not happens. Anyone who thinks this year's Barkley weather is particularly harsh or unique hasn't been around the race long enough. Same could be said about the start time. Yeah, they do that often, and that's the thing is Frozen Head. The weather's crazy there. And it might be a little crazier being that it's March. Instead of, I used to always think the race was around April Fools, but I've never really kept track of it that much. I know when I did my first 24-hour race at Beyond Limits up in the desert up above Palm Springs, up in the mountains about 4,500, 5,000 feet. And the first year we did it was mid to late March, about this time of year. And we went there, and at night it got cold. There was frost on the ground. The really thin, skinny guys had definitely problems. And then the following year, they moved it to early April. And those extra couple weeks make a huge difference in the desert mountains of California. And I'm sure it does make difference there in Tennessee. It says, someone also said, there's not bad weather, just the ill prepared. They often say there's no such thing as bad weather, just poor equipment choices. This speaks to experience more than grit. Course knowledge. One example, in 2003, Cave Dog bladed through 5 loops of rain, wind, snow, when almost all quit before 3 loops, but he trained relentlessly on the course for weeks. The point is, if you're blaming the weather for difficulty, you are not really taking Barkley history into account. It's like saying, man, all that snow really slowed down the Iditarod. So like that. Someone said, go Jared, Barkley has not us not about running. Stop bringing up how great elite runners would do. Barkley is all about orienteering and bushwhacking. There is no nice trail to run fast on. That's what makes it great. And yeah, there's all these people talking, bringing up Killian and bringing up other fast runners. But if you look at it, most of the guys, in fact, quite a few of the guys have been like backpackers, long distance backpacking and that type of thing, where, you're just going to be out there for the long haul. You got to know where you're going. You got to, like I said, orienteering. I grew up back east, and I'm so glad I did, because I lived in Georgia, and I mean, it was pretty wild, and Georgia isn't that as wild as some of these other places. And so when I came out here to California, I was just amazed at how people would get lost. Like, we were out here, if you watch some of my other videos out here at Hart Park, there's not a tree in the entire place. And, it's a big kind of some hills and stuff. And you'd be amazed. We'll go hiking out there and people will get lost. And I'm like, you can see now, because our air quality is better, for hundreds of miles in every direction. In fact, you can see the High Sierras and Mount Whitney from Bakersfield. And, the mountains to the left, it's a big U-shaped area. And I'm always amazed. So that's definitely, being fast is just not the issue at Barkley. It's definitely, you've got to be lean and mean, but not necessarily. In fact, this thing says experience is number one, age is another factor. Barkley is no country for old men. Weather and start time ultimately don't matter. Veteran presence is part of the experience as much as the others listed. Karma and luck are nice, but fate smiles on the prepared. And I know Joe Fegis, who I've been at a couple 6-day races, he's now getting into his 50s. And he's kind of said that, yeah, Barkley's just not going to be happening for him. And also what ends up happening is, it's not just that when you get older, you slow down, but your timing goes bad. And that's what I really have found with my age and, of course, my size. In fact, when I first started getting back into doing ultras in the late 2000s, I kept missing cutoffs. I missed San Diego 100 cutoff by 5 minutes at mile 75 one year. Pretty disheartening, but I had an affinity for the older athletes, guys in their 70s or 60s or 70s, because what happens is you just lose that timing. It's not much, but just enough. And I used to be a big baseball fan, and you can look at baseball cards and you'd see Willie Mays or, other great batters, Hank Aaron and people like that. And they'd be batting 300 for 16, 17 years. And then all of a sudden, season 18, they'd be batting 192. And why? They just lose that tiny little millisecond, and then it's over. They can't hit the fastball anymore. They don't see the curve. And that's what happens when you get older. You just don't pick your feet up quite quick enough, and you end up on the ground. And, of course, Barkley, I can't imagine. You definitely got to have some quick reflexes. And I found when I was younger, my size being 250 pounds, I also couldn't move nimbly. So I had kind of had an affinity for the older guys. And, when we go on these loop courses where we can do them with our eyes closed, the older guys and the bigger guys do a lot better. So that's definitely the thing. Someone else said, Barkley never pulls back. There is also never a perfect run at Barkley. It's always an exercise on how one deals and manages the endless stream of imperfections as the event unfolds. And I've been fortunate the past couple of years. I haven't seen her lately. I hope she's okay. She's been inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Trayson, she's been trying to do an ultra in every state. And I think the Providence is of Canada. And so for a while there, I was at Race for the Ages with her, tons of races in California, and spent a lot of time out there walking with her. And she often says that ultra running is all about problem solving, and you just kind of got to keep moving forward and figure out and solve the problem. So that's just basically what it's all about. Someone else also wrote 9 finishers in 10 years, 2008 to 2017, was way too much for the Barkley course that is supposed to be on the edge of elite ability. Those 0 finish years are necessary juxtaposed against the finished ones. We are overdue for a long drought. Also, there's course knowledge. Course changes from year to year, but it's not complete wholesale change. There are adjustments. Over time, one can accumulate a base of course knowledge It's applicable no matter the year. And that's definitely the case. You often hear people, when they're virgins, newbies, they try and link up and stay with someone who's been out there and do it. That's why I was really glad to see when they went out for lap 2 that Courtney and Maggie and the other gal were with Jamil, because Jamil's been out there a lot, so he knows those woods and definitely was a help. And in fact, they ended up finishing lap 2 a little bit before him. So that's definitely the thing. It says, based on what I know of the Barkleys, I'd say the ability to run fast is actually quite a ways down the list on things that will contribute to a runner's ability to finish. And I can definitely attest to that when I do multi-day races, even 24-hour races. It's not the fastest people who do the best in the 24, and definitely 48 and 6 day. You can have all the foot speed in the world, but I've podiumed in 48-hour races, and on a good day, I couldn't break 6 hours in a marathon. I mainly am a walker. Now I'm almost completely a walker, but in 48-hour races, I've won a couple in California. I've come in third. I mean, I got 138 miles and won a 48-hour there at that Palm Springs race. Guys had 15, 20-mile lead on me after 24 hours, but then they went to bed. I went to across the years and did 137 and got a third place male, fifth overall or something. And I went to the BB Farm 48-hour race and got a third there. In fact, in that race, I wasn't doing too well, but it came down to the last hour. I thought I had a 2-mile lead on the guy, and it turned out I only had a 1-mile lead, and it was a little less than a mile loop. And so for the last hour, he was chasing me hard, and I ended up doing my fastest 5K of the year at the end of a 48-hour race, and ended up beating him by 60 yards. And and this guy is probably, actually I saw he had Boston Marathon shirts on. He runs Boston Marathon every year, but I qualified for it when I was 20 when I ran 250, but now I couldn't break 6 hours. And then one of the things I really like about Twitter is John Kelly came on, obviously one of our finishers, and he said, this was kind of entertaining. He said, my time as most recent Barkley finisher will now have at least outlast a presidency, a pandemic, hopefully, and the entire Brexit saga. It's nearly the same age as our twins who start school this year. I think the Barkley course needs term limits. Dave Horton had a quote that captured a sentiment that was something like, at Barkley, it's not enough to be good at running fast. You also have to be good at running slow. There are many talented fast runners who won't be able to do this. And then, of course, I want to finish this up with John Kelly came in and did a 5-part tweet. And you can see in my show notes, if you go to my Twitter /Andy Noise, I retweet all this stuff. And so you can just kind of see it there. I really wish that Twitter, you could adjust the timeline so it goes from oldest to newest instead of newest down. Maybe it is. I don't spend that much time on Twitter. So John Kelly says, a few Barkley misconceptions that he's noticed. 1, the race requires mental toughness, but you can't simply tough it out. Failure doesn't mean you weren't tough enough, and being tough enough doesn't mean you'll be successful. Okay, and there's some people out there who say, if you're just tough enough, you try hard enough. Well, no, and that's probably why those guys don't show up at Barkley. 2, conditions matter, but they'll never be perfect at Barkley. Swings from frozen solid water jugs to scorching hot in 12 hours. That's just Tennessee in March. I've had fierce storms from nowhere, fog from everywhere, and starts from 1:42 a.m. to 11:20 a.m. Someone thinks that Barkley finish requires good conditions. They've already failed. Bad conditions most affect those who had no chance to begin with. Energy must be focused on things that are actually controllable. Definitely true. 3, yes, the Barkley course gets tougher. So does our gear, our training, and our collective experience. It's a delicate balancing act to keep it just at the edge of possible and stretch us out fully across our spectrum of possibilities. And this is completely true. I mean, now, at your fingertips, you can find out all the latest technology, training methods. You can see it in high school milers. For a long time, there was only 4 or 5 guys broke 4 minutes for the mile. Now, there's 1 or 2 every year. We've already had one kid do it, a high schooler, and there's a sophomore or a junior who's going for a sub-4 now, tonight, I think, or this weekend, and he ran 4:01 as a sophomore or a junior. Why? Training's better, food's better, altitude training, the equipment. Don't even get me started on the super shoes. Those super shoes wouldn't help you at Barkley's, but they definitely help in the marathon. I mean, the course has they got to tighten it up, just make it so, it is a challenge. That's the reason why 15 people have only finished. And then it continues on. He has it become too hard? That's been asked often in the last 30 years, and that's where the opportunity lies. Doing what couldn't be done carries for far greater appeal than defeating something already conquered. Barkley's requires that motivation, as all great goals should. And then it's kind of it's very interesting. Like, you know, some people, I think they don't really get the spirit of this. This one person wrote, "This truly saddens me. Two exceptionally gifted runners and badass women that I admire greatly. The conditions must have been crazy at Frozen Head. I long to see a female finished in this race. My hopes were that these two would do it." It's like, I don't know, it's just weird. It's just like, for years, I used to go to Cross the Years, and I remember one year in particular, and the 500-mile mark in the 6-day race is pretty impressive. I've talked to people, and Tershel Churns, and he told me when I was at that race in Vermont that only like a dozen North Americans had done 500 miles in 6 days, and he did it twice. And then, of course, my friend Bob Hearn did it at the Dome in 2019, and, you know, so he's only like the 13th, 14th person to do it. And it's funny, but like, I remember the last time I was at Across the Years, you know, one, I'm there all the time, and I've done 300 twice. And it's always amazing. So many people think they're going to get the 300, and even 300 is hard. But one year, the last year I was there was like 8 or 9 guys who I know who all thought they were shooting for 500 miles. And this is after Churchill told me about how only a dozen people had done it. And I looked at these guys and I was like, okay, in the history of the event, hundreds of years, they did 6-day races professionally, making tens of thousands of dollars in the 1870s and the 1880s. In all that time, only a dozen men have done this. And I think actually in that dozen is one woman. I'm like, okay, so if only a dozen people have done it in 140 years of this race, why in the world are 8 or 9 guys going to show up in the desert of Arizona and do 500 miles? Just statistically, it makes no sense. It's like, just do the math. It's like, no, you're not gonna. You know, and a lot of those guys, they went out hard, blew up, and then I remember some of them coming back and going, oh, you know, I'd like to get to 400. And I remember one of my friends coming up to me after the first couple of days, and he's like, oh, you know, like, oh, I could get to 400, but I got to do 100K a day. You know, and usually 100K wouldn't take me, you know, 12, 13 hours. But he goes, I'm walking, and he's like, so it's going to take me like 20 hours. And I was like, well, welcome to multi-day racing. It all comes down to 3 miles an hour, and that's on a pancake flat course. And so, you know, he ended up not getting 400. They did 300 or so and moved on. So it's just kind of, people have some seriously unrealistic expectations. And lastly, I'll end it up here. Someone else tweeted, Barkley marathons are 87% running, 76% mental strength, and 94% what the hell else. And the pie chart would make as much sense as a map you're given to copy before the start. Well, I think it's a lot of it's mental, it's training, it's preparation. It's all those things going together. And that's why this race keeps everybody's attention and is such an amazing race. Like I said in a video before, my wife of almost 31 years, and I've been racing since 79. I got married in 1990. And she knew me a year before that. And she's been around the sport of endurance sports, you know, triathlons, ultras, marathons. And she listens, but she doesn't really pay attention. She doesn't care much. But, you know, she happened upon the Barkley Marathons documentary, and she enjoyed it and totally understood it. And even her realized, like, wow, this is a crazy, hard, difficult event. And it's great to have things out there in the world that, you know, failure is almost assured and success is so difficult. So thank you guys all for listening and watching the videos and for your support. Please hit the subscribe button if you will. And as always, stay healthy, be boring, not epic.